Welcome to This Week in Hearing. Hello, I'm Bob Traynor, your host for this episode, where we're presenting Maudey, an innovative partner in remote patient care for clinical practices. Maudey is the winner of the 2022 Hearing Technology Innovative Awards for remote care. And this is a contest that we offer at Hearing Health and Technology Matters for innovative products that are brand new to the marketplace. My Maudey guests today are Alan Letzt, CEO of the company, Maureen Wiskerchen, the Director of Audiology, and Dr. Tom Powers, the Executive Audiology Consultant that is bringing Maudey to the marketplace. Thank you very much, folks, for being with us today. We very much appreciate your help as we describe Maudey to the audiology community. Before we begin with our discussion, let's take a couple of minutes for a video that describes in detail what Maudey really is and how it can be beneficial to an audiology practice and the patients it serves.
HTM proudly introduces Maudey, the award-winning internet-based solution for hearing aid education and person-centered care. Maudey delivers a wide range of important benefits to hearing aid users, their families, and their hearing aid providers. Maudey is extremely easy to learn and use for both older adults and those who are not tech-savvy. And Maudey can be integrated into a hearing aid practice and mastered by the staff within a few hours. For clients, Maudey's comprehensive set of tools includes more than 20 curated instructional videos, an experience log, a problem solver, video calls, interactive messaging, and much more. These features enable clients to better master the use and care of their hearing aids, apply new communication strategies, ask better questions, and provide better feedback to their providers. The results? Client empowerment and increased client convenience. In addition, Maudey provides 2 viewing options for clients: logging in on their computer or casting Maudey to their home TV for family viewing. At the outset, Maudey's concise reports and alerts help providers monitor their clients' progress and provide counseling that is more timely, more targeted, and more effective. The benefits? Increased client satisfaction, more family engagement, and significant time savings. Maudey's innovations have been generated and recognized 3 ways. The successful development, clinical testing, and commercial launch of Maudey has been supported by $4 million in SBIR grants awarded by the National Institute on Aging. Also, 3 U.S. patents have been awarded to Maudey, and several international patents are pending. And in November 2022, Maudey received the prestigious Hearing Technology Innovator Award for remote care. In summary, Maudey is timely, practical, easy to use, and uniquely designed to help both clients embarking on their hearing aid journey and their time-constrained providers. We invite you to visit HTM's website and follow us on LinkedIn. Then contact us to learn how Maudey will benefit your customers and your business.
Now, let's continue with our discussion with Alan Letzt, CEO, Maureen Wiskerchen, the Director of Audiology, and Dr. Tom Powers, the Executive Audiology Consultant. Before we begin, we always like to have people tell us a little bit about themselves. And so, Alan, can you tell us a little about your journey into hearing care? And I know you were involved in some other projects previously, but hearing care is kind of unique. And so tell us about your journey.
Sure. Well, when I went to college and majored in engineering, my focus was on finding ways in my career to help other people. So I decided to do something that's quite unconventional for engineers, was to minor in psychology. And I had a feeling at that time, would prove to be prescient, that minor would be very useful And I found out soon in my career that I gravitated towards human factors, or how to make products or software usable for other people by understanding how they think and how they work. And very soon afterwards, in seeing how family members often came back from doctor's visits a little bit overwhelmed and confused about things, I decided to focus on human factors for the aging in healthcare. Now, it just so happened I was very fortunate to marry a specialist in public health, and we decided to merge our backgrounds in technology and public health to approach important problems in the healthcare field. And after going through other projects in medication adherence and senior care and long-term care housing, we saw an opportunity through the National Institute on Aging to come up with innovations for hearing healthcare. So that's how we got here.
Got it. Maureen, I understand you're a clinician out in California. And can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you saw clinically where this type of a product would be really necessary and very beneficial to clinics?
Sure, thanks. It's a good question. Well, as a longtime clinician, especially as a dispensing audiologist, your experiences show you that many patients have the same issues and needs during that hearing fitting journey, and so do providers. For instance, one common patient issue is that we as providers just throw a lot of information on them all at once. Information about the hearing aids, training on how to use them, counseling on getting through life with hearing loss and things like that. And most of that's done verbally. So consequently, most of that information is not retained or forgotten altogether. And as providers, we wind up spending a lot of our appointment times during follow-up visits repeating that same information, often multiple times to the same patient even. I know personally I've wished that I had it on a recording so that I could just, hit playback. So there were things like that. The provider issue is that a lot of patients are not very good reporters of their situation, their medical needs, and providers spend a lot of time at follow-up visits, kind of playing at 20 questions, if you will, of trying to get that information out of them. How are they doing? Is this hearing aid filling their needs and things like that? So I saw this as a perfect opportunity to use HTM's platform to get that hearing healthcare information out to the patient and to help the provider and patient team along that hearing aid journey, particularly through the hearing aid trial process.
Wow. That's like when we were doing the course at Florida, we noticed that counseling was a little like taking mud and throwing it on the wall and hoping that you hit the right spot. So the cool thing is that you noticed what was happening and found a procedure to improve the patient's amplification journey. So Tom, many of us know you, but there are many others who may not. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and what interested you and led you to Maudey?
Yeah, my journey here started quite a while ago as a lot of us in speech and hearing, and getting my master's and PhD in audiology, and then going into private practice. Like a lot of us, we thought maybe we'd go into teaching, but I ended up meeting a colleague and went into private practice in West Virginia for a number of years, seeing patients. It was a whole different ball game from obviously my PhD work, which was in physiology, dealing with chinchillas. So to see real human people was a real change for me, that led me to be in the hearing aid world, and met some folks along the way, and was asked to join Siemens by the CEO at the time, Helmut Ehrman. I'm sure you know well, Bob. And spent the next 35 years working in industry in a variety of capacities throughout the entire industry, and it was a great journey. I then semi-retired a few years ago. My dad was having some health issues and decided to take a little step back. And I was fortunate enough to, find some really interesting projects along the way. I decided the rule for my little consulting company was, if it's not fun and interesting, I'm not going to do it. And so when Alan called and said, listen, I have this thing that might be, at the time he didn't know this rule, but it might be interesting. And I said, well, it's also got to be fun. And so we talked about what this project was about, and it was so intriguing. It harkened me back to my days in private practice, and repeating it, as Maureen said, repeating over and over the kinds of things that we tend to repeat, or asking a million questions to get that one answer that's going to help that patient, succeed with their hearing aid. So it really was a really great opportunity. And in the past year or so, this collaboration has, I think, produced a really great platform for both providers and patients to really get this journey not only started, but really ended in a real positive way.
Great, Tom. Thank you. Well, Alan and Maureen, I understand there's an interesting kind of a story behind how Maudey really began. Can you guys kind of interact on that story just a little bit?
Sure. Well, I'll start out that at one point, Maureen was my next door neighbor, and we had a chance to talk about lots of projects. And when Maureen moved to California, we continued to be friends and to communicate primarily by phone, occasionally visiting. And when an opportunity came up for the National Institute on Aging, I called her and said, look, I have a platform I've been developing for patient healthcare that would help patients interact better with their healthcare providers. Do you think we could modify it or adapt it for hearing healthcare, and how would it match up with your experiences? So I'll turn it over to Maureen.
So what happens when he calls? So
well, actually, we talk a long time. So I was pretty familiar with the types of work that he was doing and in patient education. And when he called me about the NIH project, I said, oh, perfect. But then we kind of had to brainstorm and think, well, what aspect of hearing healthcare would be most suited to that educational model, and came up with the hearing aid aftercare, basically, so that all, like said, the types of information that everyone needs, it's kind of universal when they're first getting hearing aids, can be available to the patient and help the provider get the information that they need from the patient. And so we kind of combined our areas of expertise to develop a tool that we thought would support and enhance that journey of both the patient and the hearing aid care provider.
Well, that's an interesting concept, because having been sitting in front of the computer with my slides and showing people how to do things, one, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one all day, it really does make a difference. So, Tom, who are the customers for Maudey?
Well, I think there are two, but really the most important one, I think, is the patient. The providers in many ways sort of know what they want to do, and patients are new to this, especially the new hearing aid patient. And as we all know, we tend to today still see a fairly older population when we talk about fitting hearing aids. And the real patient population is that group of people who might not be tech savvy, and we're seeing older folks. I guess I almost include myself there. Being
oh no, we can't include ourselves at all.
All right, I won't do that. Use their phone and use some basic techniques there. But again, they also have the issue of potentially some cognitive issues, and it may not be all full blown into dementia or anything else, but older folks, tend to have a different way of learning, a different way of understanding, a different mode, and Alan and the group there have better understand that better than I do. So the idea here is that for those folks, that age demographic, really have some pretty specific needs and need to be, I think, looked at and information provided in a very specific way that's, I'll use age appropriate in a sense. We all know talking to someone who's 65 or older is, for some of us, easier than talking to somebody who's 20, because they use lingo that some of us don't understand. And I think what's most important is that they can use and reuse. So the patient gets to see that over and over by using Maudey. And then the provider, I think, is the other real customer, because it allows them, and we'll talk more about this later, to expedite some of that process that we know has taken a long time for patients to get to the end of their journey. And I think both the patient and the provider are helped by us giving them a tool that allows them to get to the end of the road quicker. I'll use that term.
Yeah,
So-
Bob. Let me just add one other thing.
Sure.
When I use the term human factors, there are really two major components to it. One is usability of the technology, like how you log in and navigate through screens on a computer. But the second part is the content, and making the content easy to understand, easy to follow, and engaging. And that involves many years of study we've done in research and health literacy. So we've applied both of those factors, the usability for technology and the health literacy for the content, to come up with Maudey.
Of course, that makes a big difference. Some of us that used computers in our careers and developed as the computers got a little better, a little bigger, and did more stuff and all that. But there's others who never really had to use computers at all, and so it's great that you've got some easy interfaces and so on. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've seen in benefits for the using this product with your patients?
Well, the patients, I think, get a real sense of confidence, and because they're really are empowered to manage their care, to be involved in their care. The providers, again, I think just in a really quick snapshot, if they look at the patient reports as they've used Maudey, get a very good picture before the patient comes in for their follow-up visit of how they're doing, what their issues are. So I think they both benefit in very important ways and very valuable ways in a very easy, quick format.
So now, do you guys see some benefits for providers here as well? I mean, as a former provider, I can see a lot of benefits there. But what are the benefits for providers from your point of view?
From my point of view, I think it is a little bit like what we've touched on already. Is one, it frees up some of your time that you have spent repeating the information. Now the patient can view it at their home, at their time frame, view it as often as they need to. And I think even more importantly there is that the family can be more easily involved. I know I've had patients come in for visits and say, oh gosh, can you call my adult child or spouse? They couldn't come with me, or maybe they live in another city. I need them to know this. Can you tell them that what you just told me? So this way, I think on this platform, what's also very nice is that we can have the family more involved, and caregivers who can also use this as a resource, and that tends to improve patient outcomes and positive feelings about their experience. Providers want to free up a little bit more time to see more patients. We know that everybody's schedules are slammed these days, and they can use that extra time, maybe seeing new patients. But also, I think the biggest benefit to the provider in using Maudey, the patients using Maudey, is knowing what's going on with that patient before they come in and see you again for a scheduled visit. And I think they also, through use of some of the features that are on Maudey, can avoid some of those unscheduled visits, those unplanned visits for can you tell me that again? Or I can't remember how to clean my hearing aid, or heaven forbid, those ones that come in on that very first follow-up visit and say, here, take these back, because, they haven't had any sort of, you didn't know anything was going on with them. So between a few, clicks and one or two screens, the provider gets a very clear idea of how that patient is doing.
I can also see the real benefits of this. In my practice, I had patients that lived 150 miles away. They'd drive in 3 hours, and then we'd have 10 minutes of, hi, how are you? A few minutes of, oh, gee, this is how that works, and this is how that works, and this is the way it goes. And then another 10 minutes of, see you later. And then they drive another 3 hours back home. So here we are with a way in which they can get a lot of peripheral information and even maybe some adjustments at the same time or in a different time, but you know exactly what's going on. So do you guys, as the CEO and consultant and so on, do you see some benefits for providers that Maureen may have found as well?
So I think, part of that is the ability for them to go through, some of the features within the videos, the troubleshooting. And I think that's a really important piece here, is that this troubleshooting guide and section of Maudey where, we run them through the typical kinds of issues that they're going to have. And to your example, somebody that drives that far to find out, that they have their battery in upside down or something pretty simple. Those are things that hopefully they can take care of, and or the troubleshooting guide, we'll work them through that. And if it doesn't, then they can try to schedule a Zoom call first, and if it's really necessary, come into the office. And the freeing up the time thing is nice to see, patients as well, but it also frees up the time for those patients that really need that time. We see audiology practices now expanding beyond just hearing aids per se, because if you're seeing peds, they take a lot of time. Pediatric patients take a fair amount of time that really needs to be invested. Tinnitus, another aspect that people are adding into their practices these days. You can go on, hearing conservation, et cetera. So as we see practices expanding, yes, there's 40 hours in a week, and I guess you could add more, but it'd be nice to try and fit that all in that same 40 or 50 hours and just be a lot more efficient for both patient and provider. I think that's
also, Tom, I think the idea of a clinical hour and how much it costs to have a clinical hour, you're maximizing as much of that as possible. So comments, Alan?
Yeah, a few comments. One is over the last several years in developing Maudey, we've talked to lots of patients and lots of providers. And one of the common elements we've had in our conversations with providers is, and this is sort of underscoring what Maureen and Tom were saying, we're so busy. And and we take the work home in the evenings and come in on the weekends in all the different hours. And a few of them even said, when we described the Maudey concept to them as we were developing it, well, gee, maybe I'm too busy to implement Maudey. And my response to them is, if you feel you're too busy to implement Maudey, then you really need Maudey. That should be number one on your list.
So how much time does it take to implement Maudey into a practice?
We provide a 12-minute training video, which teaches the audiologist and other staff members how to use the Maudey website. Second, we provide, if they're interested, a training session for 30 to 60 minutes to review things after they've reviewed the training video. We also provide lots of ideas for them on how to implement Maudey within their practice from a procedural point of view. And then they can adapt it based on their staffing and responsibilities between the audiologists, technicians, and administrative staff. So based on our clinical trials and working with some practices, it should be no more than 2 hours to get Maudey up and running and have everyone understanding their responsibilities, including a Maori coordinator.
Well, we all know that even though we like to think, Tom and Maureen, we like to think that we're the main people in the office, that we are going to do all this stuff. Guess who? It's the front office people. It's the person who's running the computer and scheduling appointments and answering the phone and so on, that really actually run the place. And so so having something that makes their job easier as well as our job easier is going to really be a benefit to the clinic. So did you notice any glitches, Tom and Maureen, as clinics have actually to implement Maudey program into their practice?
I'm not sure glitches is quite the right word. It's getting acclimated to it, perhaps. And we find that an important aspect of Maudey is how it's presented to the patient. And if the provider or the office has shown or expressed their value or what they think the value of it is, and say, this is going to help you so much, it's going to help me so much, and it's easy setup, we'll help you with it if you need to, but it's just a really wonderful thing, then the patients are going to run with that. But that's been my experience so far, is just kind of initially the providers are going like, oh, I've got to learn this or that, but mainly it's just getting familiar with what features it can provide and what value it has, and then express that to the patient.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Bob, the other you sort of hit that on the head, and that is, we as clinicians think we need to do it all, and I think you see practices beginning to realize that they need the front office person, an audiology assistant, or some other type of role, whatever we want to call those folks. And one of those roles that we've discussed a lot is we'll call it the Maori Coordinator, who sort of really is the expert, if you will, and can almost be the person who sort of assigns tasks. And I almost like loved that when I was working full time at Siemens. I had a lot of people reporting, and one of the things was always, listen, you need to do what you need to do, and if you need me, come and see me. But there's lots of things that need to be done here, and so I think that's a hard thing for many clinicians to let go of. And I think Maudey can help in many ways them do that, because if that coordinator is assigning responsibilities to the front office person to send out the supplies that are ordered, or set up the Zoom call, or this is something, let's say if it was your practice, Bob, you really need to get a hold of Bill because he's struggling. And I can tell from what I see in the report here, this needs to escalate to the audiology level. This isn't a simple task. And so I think as you triage those kinds of activities, Maudey can be a huge benefit to getting them to the right person, which also means you save a lot of time because the right person does the job. We don't need, Bob doesn't need to pack up batteries and send them out in your practice, right? Somebody else can do that.
No, absolutely. And I think the efficient use of those individuals makes them feel better. It makes us gives us a lot more time to work with the patients who really need our care. I'm sure you guys have technical support in case there's some issues that happen, and I'm sure there's technical support that supports Maudey.
Okay, so the way we set it up, Bob, is that we train the audiologists and their staff to provide support for the patients. Unfortunately, up to now, there's been close to zero support. It's been quite incredible that patients haven't called up with problems in using Maudey and have gone through the whole program. But, software is software, and we have excellent programmers. We do countless hours of testing to squeeze all the bugs out, but no one who develops software could guarantee that their software will be 100% bug-free. So I can tell you personally, one of the things that bothers me in our modern computer era is that when you try to communicate with companies, you get chatbots and websites, but you can never talk to a person.
Absolutely.
That drives me crazy. So I would never set up a company like that. So we have initial contact through emails, through the audiologist website, but with the option, if there's a problem that requires conversation, to schedule a phone call so someone doesn't have to be on hold for 3 hours waiting for a support person, and then we'll talk to them and talk them through the problem. Fortunately, most of the few problems that have come up, the solution was reboot your computer.
That's a good one. I still remember the time when you called into a computer place. They said, can you plug in your computer? We all kind of remember those days, I think. Well, now a lot of like hearing aid manufacturers and others kind of have products that they present as somewhat similar to Maudey. Can you tell us some of the differences that are with Maudey that we wouldn't get with some of these other solutions?
I think the main difference is that Maudey tends to be in both ways complementary in terms of being an adjunct to the apps and features that the hearing aid manufacturers have implemented for remote, I'll call it remote care. Maudey has the ability for not only, as Alan mentioned earlier, that we've used the whole idea of human factors to be sure that those videos are appropriate in terms of length. They're all 4, 5, 6 minutes long. They're not huge videos that, people get bored halfway through in 10 minutes and say, I'm done. The language level, grammar, etc., is geared primarily, for the typical, I'll say, hearing aid population and so I think that's the advantage there. And, many of the apps that the manufacturers, listen, I was there for many years, put together, now run mostly on people's phones. That's a pretty small screen. And if people also have visual issues, now we've got a problem. Maudey can run on your laptop, it can run on a tablet, and we have the capabilities to cast that to your TV so that not only you, but your family members can watch those videos and also the troubleshooting, etc. So it's a lot easier platform for many people than having to watch those things on your phone. We know that's great for 20-year-olds. We see them all in restaurants and we go out there all on their, because they can see very well. I still have to put my glasses on when I have to read. So I think those are the main differences from my perspective. I'll let, Alan and maybe Maureen also comment, but.
Yeah, Tom, you touched on a lot of good points there, and I agree completely. I would just also say that it's complementary in that the manufacturers' apps, besides, yes, tending to be used on a cell phone and tiny screens, I hate them myself, being a hearing aid wearer also, but that it's there's product specific. Basically, the manufacturers are saying, okay, here's how to use our product. Here's a few extra little things, you might find helpful, but they're not really very engaging. I know my own patients very rarely got into the apps other than using it as a remote control, maybe for their hearing aids. So the one thing I like about Maudey, well, I like a lot of things about it, but one of the main things I like about it is that it has everything the patient needs in one easy to use package. It has, the video conferencing, the educational, the troubleshooting, communication tips, everything that they're going to need to get through this journey is in one place, and a very easy to use tool.
And Maureen, maybe you could also just address the Maudey reports and alerts also.
Okay, yeah, I guess in this format, not really
I think the
going through Maudey.
The reports are pretty important, I think, Maureen, because having some knowledge, as you have alluded to, before the patient actually gets there, or maybe there's enough, you just make a call and they don't even need to come in. So how are these reports helpful in the clinical situation?
Okay, well, I think there are two aspects of that. One is when the patient is enrolled, the provider can set alert levels. So you have you might have a patient say like, well, if they're scoring, you're rating themselves low on satisfaction or comfort with their hearing aids, I want to know about it really soon. Then that's where that coordinator kind of comes in, looks at the alerts and say, oh, this one, needs to be addressed by the audiologist or the provider. This one, oh, they just need, batteries. I can take care of that. So there's that aspect of it, is the alerts. The second one is as the patient is using Maudey, they're answering some questions, they're rating how they set their goals for their hearing aids, what they want to accomplish, what they want to hear better, and rate their progress on meeting those goals. That's one big thing. But they're doing these educational modules. They're going through answering questions about that. They're using the troubleshooting guide. They're rating their satisfaction with their hearing aids in various settings, indoors, outdoors, quiet, noise, that sort of thing. And that is all recorded by Maudey, and it is displayed in just a graphic display on one or two, I would guess, screens. Is that right? When they look at that report, and they just, like I said, it's a very quick, easy to access snapshot of where the patient is anywhere along the line in that hearing aid fitting process and in reaching their goals, in their satisfaction levels, ultimate outcome of the trial period. And
I'll add,
that before they come in.
Okay, and I'll add in, Bob, that the Maudey on the patient's website also shows graphs of which basically are reports of the patient's basic progress. So a family member could click on Maudey and once they log in, 2 clicks, see the graphs and see how their loved one, their communication partner, is doing with their hearing aids.
Thanks for adding that. I would see things from that provider or blinder.
Of course, and that's kind of where all of us are. That's why we threw mud on the wall forever and hoped it was counseling. That's why we did a lot of the things that we've always done. And I think Tom is very correct in the fact that the COVID did a lot for the remote care of patients, building things where we can do some tuning, maybe even beginning to be able to do some evaluation things, which may be here some places, but not so much others. So all of that is almost a logical kind of a progression to where we are with Maudey and some of the other remote care techniques. So should we do just one review of the benefits of Maudey before we kind of end our discussion?
Yeah, I'll sort of jump in, I guess. I think, the benefits really flow in 2 directions. One, we discussed both the providers, and the patients. For providers, I'll go there first. I think the ability to see the patient and how they're succeeding, I'll look at it in a positive way, how they're succeeding in their journey through the reports, how many hours they're wearing their device, what's their satisfaction with it, how they're achieving their goals, and that's all. The provider gets to see that. For the patient, I think that the big aspect for me is the fact that they're empowered through use of Maudey. They're empowering themselves to really take somewhat control and really take the bull by the horns in this journey. And that's something that I don't think we've challenged patients enough over the years, certainly early on in my career. And that we sort of put a device on them and give them some instruction, and in some ways, send them on their way. I don't want to be too simplistic about it, but we really now need to empower them to take that control, which then allows them to do a better job. I mean, the communication strategies that are in some of the videos in Maudey give people some great instructions on how to approach going to a restaurant for dinner, etc. And even though we talk about that, it gets lost because they're so focused on how to get it in their ear, they forgot about that part, right?
Right.
And so So I think, those are the two big aspects, is that both sides participate in this success. And when you have that success, everybody's happy, and that's the goal.
It's almost like sounds like it's almost like, okay, I'm going to dinner with the kids and the whole family tonight at this place, and can I pull out that particular segment and see how I'm supposed to do it? Which is, you can't go to the clinic and see how you're supposed to do it, but pulling out something that would be easy would really be a benefit.
Between my many discussions with Tom and Maureen, and also with other audiologists, one thing that's clear, that's very common, is patients come into the audiologist's office for their first visit and they're overwhelmed.
Of course.
And I think every audiologist will say, and I think everyone on the call today will say, that it's good to have a family member with them, but it's not always convenient for the family member to come to that appointment. So Maudey seeks to fill in those really important gaps to make the journey much less overwhelming for the patient, and also convenient for both the patient and the family member, so they can do things at home that don't require scheduling an office visit, taking off from work, and trying to fit into a busy schedule.
My congratulations to Alan and your company for including clinicians and those who have been in the industry for a very long time as part of the research and development and the implementation of such a program that we've just needed for a very long time in our profession. I'd like to encourage colleagues to consider the Maudey program and go to Maudey.com. I also want to thank Alan, Maureen, and Dr. Tom Powers for participating in our discussion today about a product that offers patient-centered care while maximizing our valuable clinical time. Thank you very much for being with us at This Week in Hearing.